All right, everybody. I am excited to introduce you to Kadyn Nannini. Did I say that right?
You got it.
All right, boom. Kadyn is somebody that I met a few weeks ago, and it all started with a cold call. One of my guys on my team cold called you, connected you with actually somebody else that was on my team as well. And then in conversations, I just asked about, I was like, well, can I call him? And they were like, yeah, but he's already going to another lender. He's moving from Washington to Arizona, and you're probably not going to be able to do anything with him, right? So I said, it's fine. I just want to meet the guy because I like knowing who's in the industry, especially somebody who's moving from a different state into Arizona. I want to know every loan officer possible. And you and I just hit it off. I mean, we started talking about content. You were like, I'm the Millennial loan officer. So I looked him up and I was like, I've actually seen your stuff. I'd seen it on TikTok. I'd seen it on Instagram. Followed you, fell in love with what you're doing with content. Love talking to you about strategy about content. And we just decided, hey, it made sense for us to jump on and talk, because one of the things you said to me in an early, I'm going to move this a little bit and you can edit that out. But one of the things that you said to me in one of our initial conversations was the fact that when you started off as a loan officer, you went looking for podcasts, you went looking on YouTube for any information that you could find that would help you bridge the gap on being a starter to finding success as quickly as possible. And you said there was very, very little content to no content out there, which really inspired me to do this, because you started 2 years ago and you've already had massive success in such a short period of time that I'm like, you know what? If the content doesn't exist, then you're the guy that has to be able to give it to the people that are 2 steps behind you. So I want to thank you for taking the time today to come on our podcast, man.
No, and thank you, man. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. As soon as you were like, hey, come on my podcast, I listened to all of them, was going through. And
dude, I'm so sorry about that.
No, you're completely right. I remember, just like we're telling people right now, is you're looking for information online of
yes,
what to do in the housing market. Well, I was trying to do that with how to be a loan officer, and a lot of the stuff was for people who are a little bit more established. How do you take it to the next level?
Yes.
I was like, well, how do I get to the point where I can take it to the next level? I have to get there first. So I remember looking for podcasts, anything, and how I figured it out was like, I'll just educate. I'll figure out a way to get through it.
Yes.
And I started just searching for everything. Yeah.
Well, so approaching it from an educator's perspective is very smart. And I'll tell you that, the consumer has to go through this process when they want to buy a home, right? They have to learn in light speed how quickly that they can understand information that the loan officer is telling them. And loan officers at times do this on such a repetition that they forget that the person that they're talking to has no idea what they're talking about. Or they have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, sometimes I don't even know. Like it's an interesting thing that happens when I'm doing one of my own loans. Like I'm in the process of, I just become stupid, because it's like, I can help you, but I can't help myself. Right. And so, but if you can learn it, if you're a new loan officer and you can learn this, it's really an important tool to actually learn it from the customer's perspective. So as you're learning something, would my customer understand it if I explained it to them this way? Yeah. And so for you, you've been in the mortgage industry for 2 years, right? So my question to kick all this off is, what did you learn? I mean, if you can share with anybody that's about to jump into the industry now, what are some of the things that you learned that you wish you knew, before you jumped into it? Or maybe ignorance is bliss. I don't know, but what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I mean, ignorance was bliss. If I fully knew what I was getting myself into, maybe I wouldn't have done it. I love what I do now, but
yes.
One thing I for sure can take away is the fact that you have to assume that anyone you know is not going to work with you. So you can't sit back and wait for someone to call you and go, oh, you're a loan officer now. Like, I'll just call and I'll talk to him. Everyone has other connections. They start working with realtors. Realtor passes along a different loan officer's name. So if I could go back 2 years, I would say, hey, assume anyone you know is not going to work with you. Go find all the business.
Yes.
And I think that was the hardest thing. It took me probably a full year to understand, being young and naive.
Yes.
Why aren't people calling me?
Okay, well, let me stop you there, because I want to ask this question. Yeah. So you came into this with an expectation of X,
Sure.
and then Y happened.
Yeah.
The different, and here's the interesting thing about this. You started when shit was bonkers.
Yeah.
Rates were low. They were half of what they are today when you started, right? Or yeah.
Even lower.
Even lower than half of where they were today. So you came in with an what was the expectation, and what did it end up being?
So the expectation was that, I remember my last job, I was trying to figure out the numbers and go, okay, I'm going into a commission-based environment.
Mm-hmm.
All I have to do is close 2 loans a month when I first start. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'll make back what I'm making now, and
Yes.
we'll be able to go about it. And then 3 months.
This is a conversation you're having with your wife or
with
yourself?
myself.
Okay,
With myself. Conversation with my wife, she was fully supportive.
Yep.
Obviously, it's a big change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially during a pandemic, and she had just been laid off from her job for
yes.
5 or 6 months, but
Yes.
we're crazy like that. And I just remember having that conversation with myself. This is all I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then lo and behold, I get my first loan 3 months in.
Okay, 3 months in.
Refinance from
yes.
the bank I was working at. So it's like, okay, that was a wake-up call.
Yes. So it took you 3 months to get your first loan. Who took you under their wing? Who took a chance on you? Because I joke, right? But, and I know I'm not the only one in this sense. There's some really, really good lenders out there that take people from like the get, like you're coming in from working a bank into lending with no book of business. I'm not that guy. Like I always say, you gotta at least be funding, $500,000 a month, because if you can get to that, then I can help you double and triple and quadruple that. But I'm not the guy to get you from 0 to $500,000 a month, right? So who took you under their wing and really helped you, get to understand that process?
Yeah, there was a regional lender up there in Washington who I had chatted with, met him at the gym. Mm-hmm. He kind of gave me some options of what I could do, and he basically was like, hey, if you want to do this, go get your license and then find the job. Show people you're serious. Don't just go.
And you went and got your license. You went and got your license.
So I went and got my license.
I tell people that all the time. Go get your license, call me back, and no one ever calls me back. And you actually came back with the license.
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, but you got to do this.
He was like, you should go to a bank and cut your teeth. I'm 20.
Yeah.
I'm 26.
Yeah.
Like my network's only so big.
Yeah.
Like I see it now as everyone in this industry, for the most part, is 10 years in the industry. There's not many 2-year
Yes.
vets. So got my license and then started I remember I sent 2 emails to 2 loan officers at a bank down the road from me, and they're like, you need to talk to our branch manager. And then he reached out to me, and we did a couple hour phone calls over a course of 2 months. Got my license. He's like, all right, let's go. Let's take a chance on you.
But what was the expectation? Did you expect that you're going to get the license and that deals were going to fall out of the sky, or that you would make a few posts and people would hit you up? Like, what was the expectation that you thought would happen?
So I guess expectation, I just assumed like I would have to get out there. I remember, this is going to lead into the social media thing. I remember getting in there first couple of weeks was just like, hey, learn some guidelines. Because you learn on the test, it's all regulations. So now you're like, okay, so what is an actual guideline for some of these loans? And then my branch manager, he goes, all right, so just start calling everyone you know. And I started calling people and friends, and we had I'll be honest, there's going to be some people who'll be like, oh my God, he called me during that. There were some forest fires going on in Washington, and I was like, oh, this gives me a good reason to call and check in on people.
Yes.
And if I say I'm a loan officer, that's what I'm doing now. But I did about a few of those calls, and I'm like, this is just not genuine. This is just like, I'm calling just to tell you what I'm doing. And I hate it, especially if I'm like, okay, I can call and just check in, see how you're doing. I didn't like it. So the expectation was just cold call. People would be like, oh, he's a loan officer now. I'll refinance him. It was obviously that was the boom going on. But
when you say cold call, you were calling your book, or you were calling just randoms?
That was my book. That was just friends, family, college classmates.
What would you
like
say
that.
to walk me through that pitch that you were calling?
Make me go all the way back.
Oh, I'm curious because I mean, like, here's why I'm asking, and I'll give you a chance to kind of think it through. But like, part of it is there's a boldness that comes with picking up the phone and dialing, especially if your end game is you want a deal, right? This is why you said I didn't feel like that was genuine or authentic, and you had a problem with it. It's hard, right? Yeah. And so, what were you saying, and then how did it transition into? How did you end up? Where did it start and where did it end in terms of like your approach?
I mean, well, and I'll say I did not call many people. I got to about call maybe 5 or 10, probably 10. And I was like, nah, I can't do this. But
you're like, F that, not doing it. I'm going to try something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was just like check in on people.
Yep.
And then if the conversation came up to, hey, what's going on now? Loan officer. I would not lead with it. I would just be like, hey, how's everything going? Mm-hmm. But again, at the end, I was like, this isn't me. And that's kind of what I've just tried to follow. I mean, jumping ahead for the last 2 years, I go, what's me? And that's what I try to do. Mm-hmm. So then I did eventually get into cold calling. We're in a refinance boom. Okay. And I'm at a bank. So there's leads there. And that was a rude awakening. Again, I've never cold called.
Yes.
It's people at the bank, so that at least it's a little warm cold call. But people are like, a couple of people hung up, obviously.
Yes.
I would try different methods of just like, how can I get someone's attention? Do I go analytics and numbers, mm-hmm. or just like, or be super? I remember one specifically. I was like, just trying it out. I go, hey, it's Kadyn Nannini, work at this bank, and long story short, I can save you money on your mortgage. And the guy was like, no. I was like, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you tried everything, right? You tried like just going straight to the punch.
Yeah.
And then what finally worked? Where did you hit like your stride to say, okay, I think I got something?
So I remember it was just me being me. Hey, how's it going? Mm-hmm. Right. I never had a cold call pitch that was like, oh, this is perfect. Everyone's got to use it. It was just get to a point and then start to have a conversation. Don't just go numbers. Here's what I can do. Listen.
Yep.
And listen to see what makes them tick. Like what's going on. Where's the more importance? Is it consolidating debt? Is it just lowering that monthly payment? Do they want to have, is it a 15-year versus a 30? So just listening, and started to see there was more results. I mean, for the most part, I was doing refis for the whole first year. So I was just picking up on that.
What were you listening for? Why is listening important in this process?
Yeah, it's everything, especially with these calls, whether it's purchase, like this is a very big purchase, anything to do with your home and refinance. I mean, it's just a financial decision you have to make. When you're dealing with numbers like that, emotion comes in. Not everything's logic. Mm-hmm. Another thing, as I thought it was easy. I would be a loan officer, talk about numbers, people like that makes sense.
Yes.
I think I learned about 6 months in that I've called it, we're a financial psychiatrist.
Yes.
So we have to listen to what is most important to people. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, I want to have the lowest payment possible. You just listen for the little things, or I just want to have, like, along with that, you go, oh, well, then we could just consolidate some of that debt. Everything comes down, or just really listening into what is the most important thing for people and not just assuming what they need. And that was the biggest turn for me, when at least through that first year of going, okay, this is what I have to do regardless of the people I'm talking to.
Absolutely. So it starts with actually getting into a conversation, mm-hmm. right? That's like probably, in my opinion, the biggest hump is, how do you identify who you're going to call, mm-hmm. and then call them, right? So then you get over that hump. And so now that you called, now how do you convert?
Yeah.
Right? And the way that you convert, if I'm hearing you right, is you want to at least start with listening and asking the right questions that are going to help you understand what their situation is, and then understand the emotion behind it, mm-hmm. and then try to help them mm-hmm. with that, with whatever problem they have or whatever outcome they want to get to. How do you help them? Mm-hmm. And I think if every loan officer that's thinking about getting into this business gets that advice from the get, you have to figure out who you're going to call, build your list. And for you, every one of those segments started with a different process. You were calling your friends. Mm-hmm. Then you got a refi list. Then you got something else, right? So it had different iterations. And today, 2 years later, you don't even think of the word refi, mm-mm. right? It's now all those have different variations, but you're learning and you're growing. But if you can take somebody and help them fast forward, I think what I'm hearing is it's not going to be easy. It's not as easy as you think it is.
That's the tag right there. That's being a loan officer.
And number two, you got to generate business. You have to wake up in the morning and figure out, who am I going to call that's going to trust me enough to let me help them.
Yeah.
And because you have something to offer. And so when did it come into your mind that you have all these ideas, right? That you're going to prospect, whatever, you're prospecting your customers. When did it happen that you said, okay, on top of prospecting, I now need to create a digital presence in order to help me prospect more. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? And then tell me a little bit about that journey.
Absolutely. That was actually more early on than you might think. That happened probably within the first month and a half of me being a loan officer. And I found myself following somebody. I have no shame in plugging his TikTok.
Yeah, who was it?
At that mortgage guy.
That mortgage guy.
I mean, we all know him.
Yes.
Scott. I remember sitting there. It's one of those memories that is stuck in my head. I remember sitting upstairs and scrolling for 15 minutes. And at the end of it, I was like, I just scrolled for 15 minutes. Sure, that stuff like resonates with me, but someone else will do the same thing if I do it.
Absolutely.
So I was like, I have to do this. And he was honestly, for those kind of videos, he was a pioneer in that. And then I was like, I did it.
So funny.
It's perfect. And then I was like, laugh and learn. It's the perfect combo to keep people's attention.
Yes.
But I remember doing that and just really, I just took action. And that's what I tell people to do now. Like, just do it. It's going to suck. The first one's going to suck.
Well, this is why I love talking to you because, when you think about it, this is my third or fourth cycle in the mortgage industry, and this is clearly your first. And so you and I come from two very different generations, right? Your generation, 1 month into the job, knew that you had to create some social media presence to be to accompany you in this journey. I'm trying to teach the people who are on their fourth cycle that they got to do that too. Mm-hmm. And they don't even have a Facebook, or they don't even want a Facebook, or there's so many people that I call and I'll say, hey, are you on Facebook? And they're like, yeah, but I don't really use it, and I look them up and they haven't posted in months. And it's like, then I'm wondering, is that the right demographic that I'm going after? If they don't even use their Facebook, one of the most powerful tools in our generation of changing people's minds to believe one thing and change it to believe something else. And they're not using it. They're not on it. Right. And even for you probably think in the back of your head, well, Facebook's not really my platform. Like, I'm using Instagram and TikTok. It's a different variation. And I think that that's important. So, depending, like I was on a podcast this morning with someone who's been in the industry a little bit longer than me. And we were talking about, these steps that you got to take. And it's always funny because it's almost like in the last iteration of everything you need to know as a loan officer. And then you got to market yourself. Mm-hmm. You're coming in and it's flipped. It's like the first thing I got to do is market myself and the rest will come. Yeah. That's a whole different perspective. So tell me about that. Like, how many times did you get a client maybe from your social media or from somebody and you had no idea what to do, what the next step was going to be in that process? And how did you learn that as somebody new coming into the business?
Honestly, I was able to at least have enough knowledge for when the first person did reach out. Again, did I know everything? No, but I've been in situations where most of the time learning is baptism by fire.
Absolutely.
So that's through sports.
That's how we all learned.
That's and I think that's the only way to learn here. And it really took probably a year and a half for my whole mind to shift to what it needs to be. And I've noticed a difference. Mm-hmm. But 100% talking about, like, you have to market yourself first now.
Yes. Get
the license and then market yourself.
Yes.
But
yes.
It's the world we live in. Mm-hmm. If you think I'm going to be the best loan officer and then I'm going to market yourself, it's too late. So
that's so funny, but that's so funny because this is what I love about talking to new people. And this is why you're on, is because you're giving a whole different perspective of, look, get your license, get on TikTok. Right. And then you got to learn this business and fast. Right. And so I love that. And you had enough knowledge, but did you ever get burned in the process? Did you ever, I'll never forget in my career as a loan officer, the times there was a moving truck involved and I was having to say, we can't do your deal. Mm-hmm. Right. Because I didn't take one extra look at your bank statements to find out that this new job you started, you took some time off without pay, and that's messing up all my ratios, right? Like, you learn never to do those things again from those moments. 100%. But did you have those experiences as you were coming in, or have you been lucky so far in this process?
I've been lucky so far. There have been some deals that have fallen at, whether it's underwriting or and it was something that, I might have missed a little bit, but it wasn't something that we were so far along in the process that it was going to kill the transaction, someone moving into the house. But each moment I don't like being wrong. Yeah. So anytime that I'm wrong, that's when my brain kicks in and goes, don't forget. So if it's something little, I can remember certain moments, but yeah, for sure. If I notice that I did something wrong and it affected a situation that involved someone else, I hate that.
Yes.
That's where I'm going to learn. Luckily it hasn't been a big disaster yet. But yeah, that's the only way. It's the only way my brain really figures it out is through failure, which is learning. You never really fail, but yeah.
Well, absolutely. And I think that's the thing, I've looked for this poster, I know it's somewhere, but I want to put it in my office, and it's like, make mistakes, because I think that if you can work in a safe environment where it's okay to make mistakes, then that's how you're going to learn, especially in this business. And yes, they're going to be costly sometimes, but I think if you work in an environment where you don't feel like you're going to get fired tomorrow because you made an error, and it's encouraged to make errors because that's how you learn, that's really the best way to do it. I mean, but I also think that our industry is lacking a certain type of leader that's really available to help you on a day-to-day, because a lot of leaders in our industry are also producing, and they don't have the time because they're trying to figure their shit out. They're trying to make ends meet or get to the next level as well. And so, as you kind of come through this process with new people coming in, what is one of the things that you'd like to see change in the industry? I mean, in terms of your experience, I mean, do you feel like your experience would have been better with better mentors or better, influencers at the company? Like, anything that you have, I'm very curious on that sense. Like, what is one thing that you wish you knew, or what was one thing that you wish was different about the mortgage industry when you came into it, and as you've been a part of it?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to talk bad about any mentors here. But I'm trying to think here. Like, it's tough because I came up in a pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I know the world was completely different. I remember starting, and I was one of 2 loan officers in the office, me and my branch manager. He was not producing, but anything that I would really learn still had to be through my own experience. I'm not in an office hearing about other situations.
Yeah, agreed.
So I had that probably moving down here is the first time I've been in an office where people are regularly there. So think of a loan officer doing that.
Agreed. Yeah.
For 2 years.
There's so many processes that we learned that we had to put in place because of COVID and because people weren't in the office, because people were legit suffering in silence. They didn't have answers. They were like, they were walking away from deals because they were afraid to bother anybody, right? Because everyone was busy. But to come into this business as a brand new loan officer and not have that like support, it was wise of you to go to the office, because at least you had somebody there, that you can ask questions to.
And even at times I found myself staying at home because I was like, I just got all this stuff to do. What is sitting next door?
Yes.
2 years later, I realized the importance of that.
Yes.
So hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Well, so that's a good thing, right? I would add that to the list of things that, you would give to a new person coming in, like, hey, sit next to somebody that is already in the business and is a pro. And here's what's crazy. And you're wearing a Forward shirt, and you had a chance to go to this Forward event that was a week ago. And so when you went to that event, how many people were you able to connect with there that you walked away with relationships with that you think will last and be able to help? Like, you could pick up the phone, call them, and be like, hey man, what do you ask a couple of questions and they can answer. How many of those relationships do you think you built while you were there?
Of just real quality, like I could pick up the phone right now and I could ask about probably 5.
Which
is insane.
Well, that is insane, but I think that that's the difference between you and another new loan officer. You said, I'm making the investment to go hang out with other loan officers, and I'm going to build relationships. I mean, we had dinner that night, when we were out there, because you were like bold and you were like, I'm going to hang out with these people. I want to build relationships. And to me, that was what it was all about. Like, it's funny because I don't know you by your name. I know you by your handle.
But that was the whole event. Everyone was saying handles. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it was Millennial Loan Officer, you, and then there's like the lending giant, and it's really cool. So what's inspired you? You've now had 2 years in the industry. What do you feel, where does it go next? Like what's the inspiration to continue? Why do you want to continue down this path? Because I'm sure that there were times that you questioned if this was the right decision, and what's kept you in it and what keeps you going.
Yeah. For two things, for sure. Keep going is just, it's the education piece, because I truly think that for the most part, people don't know what's happening in the real estate market. It takes a quality lender and realtor to be able to explain it and not listen to the media headlines that we're in right now. And it's chaos. I feel for all potential home buyers right now, they're like, I don't know what to think. So that's a tough part, and I want to keep going to help.
Okay.
And that has been I learned that after a few months of doing this, 6 months, I was like, this is why I like doing this. It's the freedom. Everyone says the freedom, obviously, but like, being able to just help people in an area that we were never taught. Like, point blank, never taught a single thing. The only thing that we were taught was interest in a finance class. And you're like, why would I ever need this? And then 2 years later, like, I want to buy a home. And I'm like, oh, then got it. But then also to keep going on social media, it can be taxing. It can be pretty taxing. And I remember a week before the event, I was like, I might need to take a break.
From the social media posting?
Social media, like it was simple, but just like, maybe I take a week. I get my mind right.
Absolutely. Did you do that?
No. And then you get Gary Vee up on the stage, and he's like, content, but adds a layer to that. And then you hear it from other people, and then you see all these other people doing the same thing you're doing. And it's that you're re-inspired to keep doing it. And that was awesome for me. But then just to see this community that you're a part of, I'm a part of, that has been built within the lending industry that has made its way onto social media.
It's crazy.
It's nuts.
It is crazy. And I got to give a shout out to Neil, who put together an amazing event that really just, I don't know. I mean, it was 750 people that walked away from that meeting, and or that event. And I know that there was a very large percentage of them that just doubled down on their building their brand and their content. But I want to go back to something you said is I went through this, what you talked about. It was probably a year ago. I actually did a post about it, but it was about a year and a half ago. I want to say it was maybe December or November of 2020, going into 2021. I was so burnt out on social media. I'd really gone hard on LinkedIn, and that was like my platform. I was creating content. I was engaging. I was putting in a lot of hours with it. And I was so burnt out that I took the month of December off. I batched some content. My team posted for me, and it gave me an opportunity to regroup and figure out what I wanted my voice to be, because I felt like I was just doing it to do it, with really not really understanding what my brand is going to be. And so I do think that helped me regroup and figure out, like, okay, why am I doing it, and what do I want to do with it, and why is it taxing me the way that it is? But for you, what comes first in your mind? Does it come first for you, and you specifically, and then has this changed is really the question, but like, when you started off, did you know what your brand was going to be, number one, and start marketing? Or did you start marketing and then figure out your brand?
I definitely just started doing it and figured it out along the way.
So what has been do you know now what your brand and voice is? Are you still looking for that? And how has that process worked for you?
I'm pretty sure I have it dialed down. I think
this is good.
Down to a T. I'm not sure, but I mean, the millennial loan officer was not from the beginning. Like, it was probably months in that I was like, I think knowing what I know now about social media branding, I'm pretty proud of myself to have that moment and go, no, I need to have something. Something should be me instead of just my name.
Okay.
So I took the time. It was days, and then I finally came up with that. And now, if my goal was education, who's buying homes right now for the first time? Most of them are millennials.
Yes.
But also this other side of it where it's like, this is why I love the people in the industry. Neil, Adventure Lender. It's the backwards hat. We're not this suit and tie. We're not it's someone you can talk to that it's someone that gets you. Like it's someone that has done this, learned from their purchased a home when I was 26. I can't remember the exact 25. But just being able to take my experiences, I'm like you, I'm your age. I understand what you understand, and I'm just here to help. And it's just a conversation. It's not I have to call this guy and he's going to tell me I'm in a bad situation. And so it's like, no, let's just have a conversation, and I'll help you out. And it's never, and I hear this all the time, and I love it. It's not no, it's win. So it's like, it's not no, you can't buy a home. No, it's, well, we can help you buy a home in 3 months. That's the win.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's important to know, because I always try to, when I train loan officers, everyone has, not everyone, but a lot of people that I have to work out of is everybody has this on to the next mentality. I can't help you now, so I'm on to the next. Where it needs to be like, when am I going to help you? And if you approach it, like you said, with I'm going to help you, it's just a matter of when we're going to be ready. And it's up to me to help build that roadmap if you're not ready today. And I think if every loan officer took the time to help customers build a roadmap, their book of business would grow exponentially in 2 years, because who you can't help today is going to be a client with you, 2 years from now, if you do this right, if they follow your path and you're incubating them, you're calling them every 2 weeks or every week to continue to help them and encourage them, that the end game is to get them into a house, and that it's a goal that they're focused on. So what if, when you went to Forward, were you geeking out on anybody that was there? Like, how many people did you geek out on and then seeing them in live and in person?
Neil, obviously.
You say obviously, that's so awesome.
And it's so funny because I've only known about him since February.
Yeah.
And that's through a video editor. And it's just crazy to hear how many people have respect for him and what he's done in just 3 years, 4 years. Him, Sean, Adventure Lender, and a few others, and just seeing other people. But it's like, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. I said it was a reunion of people who've never met, because everyone sees each other, being able to connect, and then it kind of breaks it down and go, oh, we're just all the same people. We're just in different phases of our career, which was awesome. I
love it. And it's funny, because I was actually going to ask you this before you mentioned it, but when you were working in a bank, what did you wear?
I've always kind of worn the same thing.
Really? Even at the bank?
Yeah.
Okay. Because
polo gets, that's the formal side.
Okay. The formal is you get a polo. Well, for those of you that aren't watching and are listening solely on the podcast, my man is wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a hat backwards. And I love that, because I think that's the new uniform, right? Especially for people who are building content and have enough ethos and credibility in the marketplace because of their social media presence, that their customer trusts that they can get the job done for them. And I don't need to be in a suit for you to say, like, I trust this guy, because I've done my research on you. How much of your business has come from social media?
Down to a T, I wouldn't be able to say, but there's been a lot of people that I didn't think would reach out. I'm talking people I probably talked to 2 or 3 times in high school that I didn't know well, and then they reach out and go, hey, I would like you to help me purchase a home, which has been it's one of the best feelings in the world.
Yes.
Where someone goes, hey, I see what you're trying to do. I appreciate the hustle. I want you to help me.
I get that so much. Like, when we started this year, I would go to, like, I was traveling all the time and like showing my stories, and I would get loan officers like, dude, I just love your hustle. Like, trying to help other loan officers. Because I was documenting. I'm documenting cold calling. I'm documenting, getting in my car and driving, 4 hours so that I can meet a loan officer. I'm documenting all of it. And I think that's where, people see that journey and that struggle. The human mind is crazy, but people are like, I want to help that guy, and so documenting it has been a really big key to the game. And I think, even with me with content producing, I even had to think to myself one time, like, instead of thinking about building content, I'm going to just think about documenting a journey. And it's funny, because then it all evolves into something different, and you start different things. So, I'm kind of making a mental list of all the things that you think are important to becoming a new loan officer. but it's definitely marketing. It's definitely, being around the right people. It's understanding how you're going to call and that you have to drum up the business. Where does packaging the file come in your mind? Like, how do you, when you get a customer that has, 5 different LLCs and 10 different properties, how do you help that customer? Where's your go-to? Or you just already know enough about that business to help that guy?
Yeah, I try to ask as many questions as possible. I think it's silly if some guy goes, I have 5 businesses, and you don't ask questions. You are going to be on the call. You're going to be on the phone the next day.
Yes.
Because you're going to have to go through these tax returns. You're going to be like,
Yes.
what is going on here? But if you can get
Yes.
a background behind what's going on,
Yes.
like you can. We used to do it at another place I worked. It was a loan story. Literally break it out, talk about what's going on here, so that if my processor or the underwriter gets in the file, they go, oh, this is. Like they don't have to talk to the to the borrower. So it's like, but it's people to people. These are not any like anyone else. Like these are people looking to come to you for help. Talk to them about their journey, their situation, and then take the financials and go, okay, I remember him saying this. This makes sense. This goes here. Just taking more time up front, which can be tough at times, right? An hour to an hour and a half phone call can take up a good bit of your day. But if you're
the good news is, if I do that,
front,
if I own 5 businesses and I spend an hour and a half with you, I'm not doing that with somebody else, right? Because I'm too busy to do that with somebody else. But I think it's highly, important that you do that. Look, you have really, really good numbers. I mean, you're not, I say you've been in it for 2 years, but you've been crushing it, right? So the question is, where does that confidence come from? Like, there's got to be times that you're going to tell a customer, hey, I'm going to look into that because I want to get this deal to work for you, and I'm going to call you right back. Like, do you feel confident saying that, or do you feel like you have to know everything in the drop of a hat?
I thought I used to, and working on this is where I get vulnerable. This is where I've been working on my confidence a lot over the last 2 years because there's constant imposter syndrome, probably because I'm constantly putting myself in the room with people better than me. And
it's amazing.
I was just talking to my wife about this of like, I don't know how I do it, but I find myself in the room. There's no science. I don't know how it happens. I'm here, right? I could have said no to a call, which most people would have.
Yeah.
So it's.
Well, not only did you say no to a call, but
we're not saying no.
You said you even told me, and I don't want you to lose your thought, but you even told me the last time you came in, like, I never thought I was setting foot in this office again. Yeah. And you came back. So how did that end up happening for you? Like, what pushes you to see a situation and say, I'm going to look a little bit deeper into that? Or how do you find yourself in rooms with people that it will help you grow?
I don't think I say no. I think I have I guess it maybe comes from being a people pleaser. I'm like, I guess I just don't say no. If you've seen the movie Yes Man, where he has to say yes. I feel like that's me sometimes. Yeah. Where I remember you calling me. I remember, again, this is weird. I can remember exactly where I was, and I'm like, I don't know about this guy. I don't know what's going on. I was like, I'll take the call. I'll take the call. A 30-minute Zoom later, and then 2 months later, I'm sitting here talking to you. So it's so like funny. You never know. I was always taught early on, don't burn bridges, and I just kept doing that. Like, you want to just make sure you're doing the right thing. If you're leaving a job, it's the 2 weeks. It's the small things, right?
Absolutely.
So it's just, you got to be open to opportunity, and I think that's what I've been trying to do. Where, I mean, it was like the Ford event. I'm like, I think I was aware enough to go, that's an immediate ROI. Let's go meet some people. Let's learn from people better than me, because everyone's better than me right now. So,
well, I think you say that, and there's some modesty there, but you have good numbers, man. You have done the hardest part of getting into this business and helping enough people. You have changed the lives of people that didn't have an option or didn't think they had an option to get in a home. And you were the first person to help them. Do you remember the first person to help you get in a home? Right? Yeah. They're never going to forget you, just like you'll never forget them. So talk to me about, your definition of imposter syndrome, because I think that's a word that we've come to use over the last year and a half, where I hear it more and more. But I don't think that the audience always knows what that means. And what does it mean for you?
I think I've gotten better with it as I've gained a little bit more confidence. So thinking back to where I was at, where I was considering myself to be imposter syndrome, was like almost thinking you're not to that level of where you currently are, and maybe you're over self-aware. You're just like, oh, I'm like, you're so in it. Like I think of so many things that it's silly, but for video ideas for social media, I'm like, it's the most basic thing, most basic video to make. And people are like, you should do that. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
It's a no brainer. So I think it's really easy for us to get stuck in our own heads and say, oh, you need to do this, this, and this to be where you think you should be, instead of going, look what you've done so far. And I think it was about the year and a half mark where I started to analyze. I go, think back to 6 months ago. Are you happy? Go back to that person 6 months ago, would that person be happy with where you're at now? And I started to go, yeah. I mean, I'm having more conversations. I'm closing more loans, whatever that number like was. And I was just like, okay, we're trending in the right direction. And I stopped, and this is just recent. This is like probably the last month. I stopped worrying about what other people are doing. And that's going to be the biggest thing for any loan officer to start, is like, don't look at anybody's numbers. Everyone's better than you.
You're just competing with you, man.
Yeah, you're your own journey. It doesn't matter if this person was able to close 40 million in their first year. It's a long-term thing. Just like owning a home. It's a long-term thing, and that you have to be okay with that delayed gratification. Yeah. It's not I'm going to get rich in 12 months.
Yeah, I'm not looking at my competitors' content. You know, I don't give a shit, right? I'm not looking at their numbers. I'm going on my journey. To your point, you know, all I care about is what I'm doing and how I'm showing up for the people that it matters to. I don't care about anything else. Like I am very driven on that side. So for you, in terms of content and content creation, what is your process? You know, from the inception of, you know, do you have a specific number of content you want to put out a week? You know, we were talking with Gary, we were in that room with Gary V. He says you need like 12 pieces a day. You know, and I look back on it and I think that I'm almost there. I think that without even really thinking about it, when you think about stories and everything else you're putting out, helping people understand what it is you do, right? Like you were telling me that right before this, you were at the coffee shop, met a realtor on the way out, and you know, like how cool would it be to see all those stories of it, right? And like, so do you have a specific agenda that you're doing every week, or it's just as it comes, it flows? It
used to be just like chaos. It used to just be, if I had an idea, write it down, and then maybe I would find time to do it. I've been really working to time block.
Okay.
I have a buddy and we talk, and we love the idea of time blocking, but we can't always pull it off. But it is a income producing activity.
It is,
and we need to set time aside for things down to just script writing, idea writing, and then also the filming, because filming can get away from you. It can take up a full day, and you're like, what did I just do?
How many do you do in a one sit down or one session?
I'm trying to do at least 2 if I'm going to take the time.
And how long does it take you to get 2?
If I'm just filming and I did my due diligence up front, 20 minutes at least, and then just, you know, the exponential from there. But if I can batch, that's the goal.
Yeah.
But just doing the due diligence of my goal is one post or something a day, and then stories adds into that, to Gary's number.
Okay.
That's how I view it, because you can overdo it. And then you can overdo just the business side and not personal and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely trying to batch.
That's my biggest problem. Yeah. Like by the time I'm at home on the weekend, I'm not picking up the phone to show what my kids are doing. I'm tired. Like I want to throw the phone. I've been on it so much for the week, you know, but I do think you have to add in like your life piece to it. You know, it's just, we get so ingrained in the hustle. So you're trying to do one piece of content a day with stories to back in on. And in that piece of content, where's your biggest platform? Is it Instagram or is it TikTok?
It's definitely Instagram. Working to build TikTok, but Instagram is the most success I've seen, and it's been able to tap into. When I first started this, it was all like how to let everyone know, to go back to hating, cold calling. That was my form of cold calling. This is how you know what I'm doing now. And then now it expanded into how can I reach more people? And then how can I also show my page to show some reputation? Okay,
so let's talk about that, because I've always talked about that in terms of making cold calls easier. If you've seen my content, it's no longer a cold call.
Correct.
Right? And so how can I help bridge that? And by the way, it's not just in real life with the person that I'm calling, like whether they've seen me or not, it's psychological to me when I pick up the phone and I call them, how confident I'm going to be if I think that they've seen my content. So one of the tricks, and I don't know if you do this, but one of the tricks that I do is I will go on, if there's somebody that I really want to meet and work with, for like the 2 weeks leading up to my phone calling them, I'm commenting on everything that they post so that they know, because you don't forget a comment, do you? Like I remember. Yeah, I remember every fucking comment, you know? And so then if I'm like, okay, this person's been giving me love, they call me, I'm going to take the call. It's reciprocal.
Yeah.
It's because you were nice. You engage with my stuff. So is that something you do, or how do you engage with your audience?
So I've actually started to implement like actually being more active and creating that community, or just whatever, of interacting with people, so that it's not just this robot putting stuff out. But then I've also, my social media pages have helped me set meetings. They've helped me make great connections. So you have to leverage it. Everything, it's not there just to be like, oh, you're prospecting. It's using it as leverage of like, oh, this guy actually cares. He's taking X amount of time each week for this industry.
That's so amazing. Because where I saw engagement work live in person was watching the lending giant, who is Bryce. Everyone knew him.
Yes.
And it's all because he engages with, how do you know him? How did you guys talk?
Instagram.
Who hit who first?
Probably him. Probably, right? Yeah, probably through a comment, and then we just started talking.
And now you guys are friends, and you're hanging out, and you're coming to dinner, and we're now in a room. And I don't know if you spent enough time with him, but I was with him when so many people were walking up to him, taking pictures with him. And I was like, this guy's like a celebrity. Yeah. But if I talk to anybody, it's because he engaged with them, and he was just so nice. It works. Imagine doing that. So, for a new loan officer that's actually out there and trying to market themselves, it's not just about throwing your message into the world. It's about balancing that with engagement with the people that you want to meet. And then you have to activate that relationship. You have to do something and call them and talk to them and build a relationship and help them. Figure out a way that you can help them, take their business to the next level.
Yeah, always help.
And then it'll come to you. Do you believe that you're in this solely for the money?
No.
Why are you in this game?
Through the PTSD that was purchasing my first home, where I learned nothing, and knowing that I can bring value and information to people for not only this home now, and make sure they are making a comfortable, educated decision, but then they're going to know going forward, oh, I know what I'm doing. Yeah. Because we're playing catch up at 24 to 30 trying to purchase a home. Like, we have no idea.
Well, but that's like the millennial. You're the classic millennial who is, who needs that help, right? Because millennials in general don't want to be tied down to something, but they also get their information from the same places that you're posting. So if you can connect them and teach them why renting is the wrong thing to do, and teach them how to either invest in property so that they could rent it or buy a home, you're creating a much stronger wealth position for your client. I'm going to tell you this, and I hope that it resonates, but you mentioned this imposter syndrome. You're on this podcast not because you suck. You're on this podcast because I know you're about to take your business to the next level. In 2 years, you're not going to have time to do this with me. And I wanted to catch you on the way up, right? And I also believe that you have an ability to inspire the guy you were 2 years ago to maybe make a change that's going to get them to success a little bit faster through this podcast. So if you're out there and you want some inspiration, reach out to the Millennial Loan Officer. He is on TikTok and he is also on Instagram, and get to know him. One of the nicest guys in the business. But if I was learning this business and getting it, I'd want to talk to the person that's just 2 steps ahead of me, 100%. Because what they're learning is fresh. And then as I get, enough from there, then I'm taking it to the next person, right? But I think you start with this guy. I have full confidence that if my mother or grandmother or somebody in my family was getting a loan, that you would help them the best. And so I'm very confident in your abilities to get the job done. But in terms of the imposter syndrome, man, I mean, I hope I hope that confidence continues to build because you have every reason to feel confident about what you're doing, man. So thank you for taking the time today
Of course,
to be on this. And it was so fun to hang out with you forward and get to know you through this process. And I'm going to do a lot more with you. We're going to figure out a way to continue to collaborate on this. So thank you for being in today, man.
Thank you. I can't say thank you enough, and it's a short drive, so we'll be seeing each other a lot.
All right, brother. Well, good luck, and thank you very much for being on today.
Thank you.
All right, brother.